The narcissist's awareness. It is often remarked on that I exhibit considerable awareness of what I am. I find that a fatuous remark. Of course I know what I am. I am me. Eventually, when the individual finally finds some accuracy, they explain that what they meant to say is that they are interested, often amazed, and sometimes impressed by my awareness of what I am. I have always been set apart. I have always known that I am different, and as I experienced increased interactions with more of my kind, I saw that few of my kind have such a level of awareness. It is certainly true that the mid-range and the lesser schools of our kind have no awareness of what they are. They do not know what drives their behavior. The lesser pays it no regard whatsoever, cruising through life like that wrecking ball, driving forward, never looking backwards, never giving a moment's consideration as to why they did as they did. The mid-range narcissist will furnish you with a reason and an explanation. But it is not the real reason behind their behaviors, but rather the reason that is given to them by the narcissism as an explanation, which will then be utilized for the further manipulation of the individual. Whether it is believing that they are in love with the individual, that is whether believing that they are actually sorry for their behavior, or that they will change. It is all part of the manipulation. The mid-range narcissist does not know the genuine reason behind why he does as he does. The mid-range and lesser narcissists act and behave in a certain way as a matter of reaction, instinct, and recourse, without knowledge of why they do it that particular way. That is the way that it is to be done, and anybody challenging them as to why they do it, or that stating that it's wrong, is thus regarded as a fool at best and a traitorous troublemaker at worst, and is dealt with accordingly by the relevant assertion of control. The narcissist does not regard their own behavior as being outside of the normative. If a person points to this person that they are showing off and hogging the conversation, there will not be a recognition of that and apology before becoming quiet. Not at all. Instead, this particular narcissist, as the recipient of this remark, will respond in a furious manner as a consequence of this challenge. The lesser narcissist will not see that there is any problem with regard to the fact that they were hogging the conversation. So what, would be the shrug. A mid-range narcissist might accept that they were and offer some false contrition, but more usually they would be likely to deny it, claiming that it never happened, and retreating into sulking if their denial does not work. The lesser and mid-range narcissist does not regard their response as odd or disproportionate. From their perspective, they believe that they have been unjustly criticized. If you try and point out that the narcissist was the only person who has spoken for the last 15 minutes, the narcissist cannot and will not accept that that is problematic. He or she will dispute the time estimate, point out that somebody else did speak, and then allege that the accuser is being unfair and singling out the narcissist. Or express, well, I haven't had a chance to say anything yet, so is it any wonder that I went on a little bit longer? Sorry for being me. There will be a range of manipulative responses, all instinctively deployed by the narcissism to nullify the threat to control and then achieve that control. The narcissist will not allow this threat to their control to continue. They will deny, dispute the facts, deflect, utilize a pity play, be arrogant, demonstrate self-entitlement. A variety of different ways, all deployed with the singular aim of the assertion of control and the drawing of fuel from the recipient of these responses. If the accuser seeks support from other individuals, they of course will regard this consensus of opinion as validating their stance. The narcissist will not see it this way. The narcissism will not allow that to happen. The narcissist will accuse the accuser and the various witnesses of being wrong, that their memories are impaired, that they are biased, that they have nothing of worth to say anyway, and that is why the narcissist was speaking. The narcissist will accuse them of ganging up on the narcissist and showing their bias. No matter how many times the accuser and or the witness points this out to the narcissist, it will not be accepted, because each time the accuser and or the witnesses are threatening the narcissist's sense of control. The accuser and or the witnesses will feel like they are banging their heads against a brick wall. How can the narcissist not see the point that is being made? How can they not recognize that he or she was the only person talking for the last 15 minutes? This refusal to acknowledge this supposed fact, coupled with the attacks from the narcissist, which are the defense mechanism's response to these criticisms, are bewildering to people who don't know about narcissism. The narcissist that is mid-range or lower cannot elucidate his position to a point of understanding for the accuser because there is nothing to explain. He is right, they are wrong. Even if he adopts a contradictory stance, he remains right, but he will not see the inherent contradiction because the narcissism automatically rewrites history, removes the contradictory element, and does so, blinding the narcissist to his or her behavior. Those of us who are of a higher function know what we have done, but we will still have the same reaction as the lesser or mid-range narcissist, i.e. the need to nullify your threat to control. We will do it in differing ways, invariably with more polish, more charm, a greater level of plausibility. But the effect is the same. We nullify the threat posed by your threat to our control and we gain fuel. We know through your conventions, because we've heard them and studied them and absorbed them to allow us to fit in, that such a behaviour is regarded as ill-mannered. We understand that, but we don't give a rat's ass. Certainly not as members of the greater and ultra schools. We know what we have done. We know you regard it as wrong. We understand that, but we do not accept it, because from our point of view, we are the ones that are right. We are better than you, and therefore we can do what we want, and you have to deal with it. We also feel the threat to our control, and we respond in a similar way. We recognize the logic of what you're saying based on your worldview. We have that ability to step between two worlds, but we still won't accept it, because to do so is to cede control to you, and that can never happen. If we let you have control, then we will start to cease to exist. The lesser and mid-range narcissist responds, reacts, and retaliates as a matter of instant behaviour. He doesn't know why, he just does. Those of the greater and ultra school have awareness as to why we do as we do. We also recognise, a lot of the time, that you recognise the behaviour as wrong. But your opinion and view is invalid in our eyes, because first, you are wrong, and secondly, you are inferior to us. Of course, we will, for the purposes of fitting in, for the maintenance of the facade, explain that we understand your point of view, and thank you for that valid contribution, and your opinion is always welcome. But behind that supposedly pleasant exterior, we dismiss what you have to say. It is of no consequence, and we must do that in order to maintain our control. The fact that we are aware of what we are doing but still continue to do it, of course becomes bewildering to you. The mid-range narcissist knows what they're doing in the sense of, for instance, ignoring you, hitting you, comparing you to somebody else, but they don't know why they're actually doing it. They are led to believe that it is as a consequence of your actions against that narcissist, that you are the perpetrator, that you are the protagonist. In the world of that mid-range narcissist, his response is validated because you have caused the problem in the first place, because his narcissistic perspective causes it to look that way. I recall that when I was a lot younger, as a child even, I required attention and reactions from people. But first I didn't know why. I just recognized that I needed people to be praising me, responding to me, even shouting at me, as long as it was aimed at me, as long as I had caused it, as long as I had provoked it. It meant that I mattered, and thus I felt that I had control. If this didn't happen, I felt the restlessness. I felt worthless. It felt like I was nothing. And I then realized that each time that I provoked a reaction, and I quickly learned how to do this, and now I realize that I had already begun to do so to a degree through instinct, and I then honed my abilities further. I recognized that there was a selection of options given to me by my narcissism, and I chose the most effective one. I realized that when I provoked that reaction, when it was caused by me, that reaction was of course fuel, and the receipt of it made me feel powerful. The reaction fueled my power, and thus this was how I realized what fuel was and how important it was to me. If I received this fuel, there was no weakness. I felt powerful instead. The emptiness receded. The wailing of the creature was silenced. I then became aware of how different reactions made me feel stronger and more powerful, and also who the reaction came from. I worked out that negative responses made me feel more powerful than positive ones. And, through my work, in time with the good doctors and the application of my own need to understand what I am, how I work, and how I tick, I established why the responses differed. There are those of our kind who have a higher functioning capability, and they realize elements of their behavior and that they are different. But we all regard this as necessary because we are special, and we do not see fit to probe further or question why this might be. They know how their victims feel because they hear what they say. They see the responses and they absorb this information. They don't care how they feel and save in respect as to how this information can better serve their purposes. Those that are greater and the elite, who are of a higher function, know that we are set apart and special. We know that we respond differently to other people, people like you. We know we don't feel certain things, and that we feel others. We know why. We know we do things differently, and we know why. We've always wanted to understand what we are. We want to know why, and we know that we must seduce. We know why we must suddenly hurt those that we claim to have loved. We know that we create an illusion, and we understand why we do this. We want to also understand more of why we behave in the way that we do. And this thirst for knowledge is not born out of any sense of wanting to change, to correct our behaviors, because we do not regard them as wrong, although we know that you do, and we have no desire to become a different person. We are entirely effective as we are. We want to understand why we do as we do. This stems from that initial gift of awareness, a gift of insight, which is granted to those of us that are greater and ultra, and then, as a consequence of that, I became further set apart because of my desire to investigate entirely why I am as I am. Not only was I granted a high level of awareness and initial understanding as to my behaviours, I was also blessed with that desire to leave no stone unturned, to figure out every action, every thought, every response, and come to understand why I am what I am, why I do what I do, why I sense what I sense, why I see the patterns in the behaviours, that I am able to pick them out, understand them, and apply them, how I anticipate behaviours, how I know what is about to be said. That is what sets me apart as the ultra. There is no shame. There is no guilt. I am a very intelligent man, and therefore I have always wanted to know why. And I started from a point of knowing much. And then, driven by this peculiarity of what I am as the ultra, I needed to know more and more. And not only about me, but about the rest of my brethren, and about you and your kind, so that I would become the most accomplished, effective unit with regard to hunting down my prey. I wanted to know why. And therefore, along with the compulsion placed on me by my family, that is why I consented to undertaking the interactions with the good doctors, or the treatment as it is referred to. I do not regard it as treatment. I regard it as an investigation into the ways and whys of what I am, and those who are like me, but far less distinguished. I did not engage in it with a view to changing, being healed, or being cured. Those things can never happen. I do, however, because I am not stupid, see the intrinsic value in analysing my behaviours, discussing them with the relevant people who understand, or at least seem to do so, both sides of the coin, understanding my view and your view. And such an investigation brings particular value to me. I embarked upon this additional self-discovery of what I am, not to change, not to be cured, not to be healed. Those things are denied to me, and that is not something that concerns me. I did all of this to become even more effective.